Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston, and this is InPowered Life.
Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I'm your host, and today is a big day in my house. Let me tell you, I get to introduce you to and get to have a one-on-one, uninterrupted conversation with Jon Gordon. You know, Jon Gordon for me is an expander, and I have shared on the podcast repeatedly that an expander is a person that you get to look to that has done something, achieved something that you aspire to have, to be, to do. And in them doing what it is that you want to do, they expand your belief in what it is that is possible so that you can then believe that you can do it. You see, people only ever do anything if they know that it's possible, but they also need to know that it's possible for them. And that's where this incredible human being comes in, because not only does he show people what is possible, Jon is the world's foremost, in my opinion, absolutely credentialed as one of the top speakers in the world. But in my opinion, he is by far the greatest stage speaker. I've had the privilege of watching him walk out on stage and captivate audiences, and how he's able to beautifully articulate his message that makes people take ownership of the information. In addition to all of that, he's a 30 times best-selling author. 30 times author, 17 times best-selling author. He's written books like The Energy Bus, The One Truth, which we were definitely going to be talking about today. Just an incredible book. The Carpenter, Difficult Conversations Don't Have to Be Difficult. And literally, as of the time of the recording today, he's just launched another book, Success Journal. So we have so much to talk about, but I want to start with expanders. Jon, firstly, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, Mr. Jon Gordon.
Rudi, thank you so much for those kind words. I actually don't feel like I deserve them. And it's really very kind of you to say. You're an amazing human being. Got a chance to watch you speak as well at the event with Aaron Billy, and just what a blast we had. And it was so fun watching you just captivate the audience as well, to move them, to inspire them, to encourage them. So it's great to be with a like-minded expander who's doing amazing work.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. I'm going to play that back a number of times, So, Jon, firstly, thank you. I had said to you, I wanted you to come on the show as an expander. And I love to teach that, people want to have, be, or do something. They don't do it because they don't believe it's possible, or they don't believe it's possible for them. And so I encourage people to find somebody that is doing something in any field that they want to have, be, or do. And then by seeing that somebody else is doing it, we can then take what the steps that they are doing, apply them into our life, and in some measure, we could create a similar result. You are a 30 times author. I mean, in the last, I think it's 4 months, you've dropped 2 books. You could correct me on the dates there, but, I know people that want to write a book and have never been able to produce a book, and they're still in the stuck stage, and you just somehow seem to take committed action day after day after day. But I wanted to just open up to the audience by sharing that, you're a 2-part an anomaly here, because not only do you show what does it look like to take committed action, but when you write your books, when you stand on stage, you actually support the people to take ownership and believe that it's possible for them. And so I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much for that. I just appreciate you and how you get to show up out and in the world.
I appreciate that. I didn't even know that I could write books years ago until I did. I think it begins with just taking the first step and being courageous and taking action. Action and courage really is the difference between dreaming of the life that you want or living the life of your dreams. So what is it that you're focusing on, and what is it that you want to create and build? And you're right, you have to believe it's possible. I think that goes to mentors. Like, you really have to have a mentor. And sometimes those mentors are people you don't even know, but you look to from afar and you see what they're doing. And you're like, I want to do that. And the fact that you have that desire within you to want to do that tells you something, because you're watching someone do it, you have a desire, and then that desire causes you to want to act. And you wouldn't have the desire if you weren't meant to do it. I really believe the desire emerges within you because you are meant to do it. But so often we don't act on our desire, or we don't think it's possible, or in many cases we don't feel worthy. I think a big part of it is we don't feel worthy. And because we don't feel worthy, we don't deserve this. And because we don't deserve this, then we just shy away from it. We retreat from it. So for me, it's trusting in God, is believing that there is a God and it's not me. And that's where humility comes in. And it's trusting that there's a plan, for my life. And then I just have to believe that beyond me, there's something greater that God has for me and that's possible. And then for me, just to take action and just to do it and not limit myself and go, you know what? It may not work, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And I may fail, but that won't define me. And I may not succeed, but I'll keep on persisting until one day I succeed at that, or it leads me to something else. Sometimes you have to lose a goal to find your destiny. And that's what I realized on this journey. I ran for city council of Atlanta. I walked door to door to 7,000 houses. I was a government economics major. I thought I wanted to be in politics. And so right after getting married to Catherine, and by the way, I don't recommend running for city council or any political office right after you get married. And I did that. And it was an incredible experience, but I lost. And I felt the negativity of what politics really looks like. They came at me so hard because I was a threat. Because I actually, at 26 years old, I was emerging as the one who was leading in the race. And they started just blasting me with all these lies and negativity. I was 26. I had no baggage, but I experienced that. And when I lost, I said, man, I thought my life was over. But then I realized it was a new beginning to create something else. So yes, I failed, but I went for it. And I got JonGordon.com during that time. We're talking 1997. I had JonGordon.com as my URL, as my website for politics. Well, that became my URL now for all the speaking and writing I do. So something bad always leads to good.
You just gave a masterclass in the opening, few minutes there, because I think if people were to go back and re-listen to that, they would gain so much value. And I'm scared so many people are going to hear that, but not pay attention to the words. So what I want you to do is to go back again, and I'm going to ask you the same question slightly differently, because you've written 30 books, 17 of them are bestsellers. You work with some of the biggest teams, professional athletes, Fortune 500 companies. You're creating impact each and every single day. And there was a journey for you to be able to get there. I want to really talk about the journey of how you got there. But I also want to support the person that's listening to this thinking, man, I want to take action. And it doesn't have to be to write a book or to be on stage or to impact, the Los Angeles Rams as an example. For them, it might just be starting a business, getting into a relationship, doing something. And so I really want you to go and give us, if you can, what would be the advice or the support that you would give somebody if you were going to encourage them that has not been able to take that next step in their life or the next number of steps in their life to achieve something?
It's something very practical that we teach with the power of positive leadership, and it's telescope and microscope. And that telescope is your big picture vision of where you want to go and why you want to go there. And so when you know your why, you will know the way, and you won't let obstacles get in the way. And so we don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. And so often your purpose must be greater than your challenges, because there are many times that I want to give up or didn't want to act early on, but I had this purpose and I had this vision and mission, and it was to go make a difference. It was to go impact others. And Rudi, this came out of, people need to understand, my own negativity, my own fear, my own stress, crumbling from the inside out as I lose my job during the .com crash, as my wife is threatened to leave me because I'm being so negative and so miserable, and blaming her for why I've not lived up to my dreams. And then she gave me that ultimatum, change or it's over. And Catherine, she's a strong woman. And she said, if you don't change, we're done. And I wanted to change. So it began this journey of working to become a more positive person. And I said to myself, what am I born to do? Why am I here? That why am I here? Why am I so miserable? And I realized I wasn't doing what I was born to do. I wasn't living with purpose. And I also realized I was meant to write and speak. That came to me in that ask. I asked, and it came to me. And in that moment, I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And that's when everything changed. I also wrote about this in my book, Training Camp. Every person who's ever strived to be great, the best of the best, all had a moment where they said, this is what I truly want to create. That goes to telescope, microscope. This is what I want to build. The best all have that moment. You've got to say, this is what I want. This is what I want to build. And a lot of times people don't really know what they want. They don't know what they want to create. They don't know what they want to build, but also it's because they haven't thought about it. They haven't reflected on it. They haven't gone into their hearts desire. They haven't prayed on it. They haven't reflected or meditated on it to really think about what that is. I'm convinced if you ask, it will come to you. If you're open, you will receive. I'm convinced that if you are looking for your purpose, you will find your purpose. There's nothing more important than living your purpose. I've written 30 books, so all these books come to me as I'm talking, because the seed is about finding and living your purpose. And it's about a guy who's just purposeless, and he hates his job, and he goes on a journey to find his purpose. It's a quest with his dog Dharma, which means purpose, and they go to find their purpose. So as I'm thinking about that, I had my why, and then I knew the way, and then it was this vision of where I'm going. That's the telescope, big picture vision. But then it's also the microscope. It's the zoom focus actions that you will take each day to realize that picture in the telescope. So you got to show up and you got to act. You got to act day in and day out, and just small actions, but small, courageous actions that move you closer to where you want to be. And again, because you have this big picture vision and you know your why, you act every day along the way. And I think that's a big part of it too. I'm really consistent. And every time I do feel fear, and I don't allow that to hold me back. I take one step forward. And, my message of positivity, and that's one of my core messages, it's probably my biggest message. It's all about staying positive on the journey, and not Pollyanna positive, but with grit, with optimism, with belief, with hope. And belief is essential, because if you don't believe, you will not act. There has to be some level of belief. But even maybe before you believe, because we talk about this with my daughter, Jade, who I believe you met. Jade has a lot of courage. I would say courage, not confidence. Courage, even when she doesn't believe. And so she still acts and takes that action. So I think you have to have courage. And then you also, at some point, belief has to set in. And then belief is greater than thought. So as we're starting out, negative thoughts are going to come in. But your belief and your conviction of doing this, or your why of doing this, or your vision of doing this, all that we're talking about here, is greater than those negative thoughts that come in that try to hold you back and sabotage you. Because on this journey, you will face resistance. And that resistance so often comes up, and it's often greatest, as you know, and we've all experienced it, it's often greatest the closer you get to that breakthrough. You face more and more resistance. That's how the universe works. And so it's breaking through the resistance, and everyone will struggle with it. I think it's because it makes you stronger, it helps you grow, and it really tests, it refines you to say, do you really want this? And are you meant for this? And are you willing to go to that next level to step up to create the life that you want?
You just so beautifully articulated the message. And what I want to emphasize there is that if we want the courage and we want the belief, the only way we're going to get any of those is if we take the action. And so many people get stuck with the action, and you beautifully do that. But I want to again emphasize your life as an example of it's not just going to fall in your lap. I have conversations with people all the time where they say to me, oh, well, I feel this is God's given me this purpose. Why is it not easy? Why does it not just fall into my lap? Why is everybody not running up to me and asking me to publish a book or to speak on a stage? If it's God's purpose, I should be, in the flow of it being easy. And you I know obviously a tremendous amount about your story, and I want to just bring the audience in case they don't know you yet. I'd be very surprised if somebody is living under a rock and hasn't yet heard of you or read any of your books. But, we know Jon Gordon today. But I also know that when you wrote The Energy Bus, the book didn't take off right away. I mean, I know it took off in Korea. I've heard you mention that before. And you hit the bestsellers list in Korea, but it took 5 years for The Energy Bus to hit the bestsellers list in the US. But you still took committed action every day in between that. And I think that's something else that could add tremendous value to our audience.
Yep. Part of God's plan is you taking action. So your action is part of the plan. So hey, we're waiting on God, and God is waiting on us to actually act and to do our part. And it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, you wouldn't develop the character. You wouldn't develop the strength that you need to take on even bigger challenges later on. So opposition, worthy opponents, as my friend Brian Schwartz calls them, worthy opponents come up in your life. And every worthy opponent, like a rival, Rudi, I bet you had a rival in high school or middle school. You had a rival. So did I. Everyone has a rival. Well, we have rivals throughout our lives, and those rivals are often opponents and obstacles and challenges and adversity. They're meant to make us stronger. They're part of the curriculum of life. Everything is about a test. Everything is about struggle. Every sports competition. So you're going to have to fight through it, and that is part of it. And I'm thinking about like my life, and I'm thinking about other people's lives. You're right. Everyone wants it to be easy, and they say, oh, well, it must not be God's plan if it's not easy. No, the fact that it's hard and a struggle is actually part of the plan. Now, there are times when you should give up. There are times when you should do something else. And those signs are letting you know maybe this is not for you. And I think the key goes back to, do you feel in your heart of hearts that you're meant to do this? Do you truly want to be the best in the world at this? Is this your passion? Is this your desire? Like when I knew writing and speaking was it for me, I said, even if it takes me 10 years, 15 years to be successful, it's okay, because I'll be doing something that I love. It's easy to go get a job right now and go make money, because I knew it would take a while to make money doing this, but at least I'll be doing what I love. So it was never about the money. It was knowing that I was here to do this and I want to do this. Now, going back to the energy bus, rejected by over 30 publishers. So now I have 30 books, and back then rejected by 30 publishers. Even before that, my first talk that I got, I actually tried to quit. I tried to cancel it because I was so afraid to actually go speak. And she said, no, you can't. I have my company waiting for you, because I owned the Moe's Southwest Grill franchise, wiping tables down, and started talking to the managing partner and said, you know, I'm a motivational speaker. And I hadn't given one talk yet, but she invited me to go speak to her group. And then eventually, after trying to get out of it, I did. And when I walked out of that one talk, right? One talk, one decision, one action, I said, I think I could do this. I think I could do this. So then I started looking for others, and I did another talk and another talk. And now I have a certification program where I'm certifying people to go do this work, and we train them to deliver workshops and keynotes based on my 3 main books: Energy Bus, Power of Positive Leadership, Power of a Positive Team. And it's really cool because I've seen all these people that I've now raised up, lifted up, encouraged, and helped and supported. I've watched as they have done one talk and then led to another and led to another. And now many of them are thriving, and they're making over 6 figures now, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 doing this work, making a huge impact. And I'm watching them, all of them do this. I'm watching my wife do it. I'm watching my daughter do it. It's so cool to see people change from the actions they take. And so here I am getting rejected by those 30 publishers, try to get out of that one talk. So it wasn't easy for me. It was really challenging. And then it finally does get published by John Wiley and Sons. And now no bookstores would carry the book. So what I do? I acted. I said, I'm going to go on a 28 city tour. And there was no social media back then. And I got on a little energy bus and drove around the country from city to city, sharing the message in the book. We had 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. The most people we had were 100 people in Des Moines, Iowa. They thought Jeff Gordon was coming. That's why they showed up, the race car driver. And Jeff Gordon was not there, but I was. It was not a successful tour at all. Most people probably would have given up after that. It was not fruitful. I'm hustling. I'm sharing it. I'm just in the grind. But that's where my faith was born. That's where my belief was born. My conviction was born. Because even those people that showed up, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a difference in those people's lives. Now, here's a cool thing. One of those events, 6 people were there. One of those 6 people, 10 years later, became the president of Avon. She remembered my talk to that small group and brought me into Avon to speak to 6,000 women at the Avon event. And I think about that often. 6 led to 6,000. Why? I acted. I showed up. Most people would say, it's not very productive to do that, John. Why are you going to waste your time going to all those cities for that small amount of people? Well, guess what? One of the people gave the books to Jack Del Rio, who's the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He brought me in to speak to his team, and I've been speaking to sports teams ever since. I could trace back so much my success to that one tour where I just took action, where it's not a smart business decision. There's not a good ROI for it, but I decided to do it, and it's amazing how much came out of it. Make-A-Wish Foundation asked me to speak. I said, I'm not going to charge. I can't charge the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I did that event. 4 companies were there as big donors and supporters and sponsors, and they all booked me for their companies, paying me over, at the time, I think it was $50,000 to speak. So think about all the revenue that just came from that one talk that you do pro bono. Did I think something was going to come out of it? No, not at all. It was my heart to say, I want to make a difference to the people in this group, and then good things come from it. And that's what The Carpenter is all about. My book, The Carpenter, is about loving, serving, and caring. So you act, but you do it with love. You look for ways to serve, and you show that you care. And if you do that day in and day out, any successful person, you'll become a craftsman in your work. And from there, you'll stand out in a world of average. You'll stand out, and then your business will grow exponentially when you act, you love, you serve, and you care. But did I overcome fear? Yes. Did I overcome concerns that this wasn't going to work out on that tour? Did I have doubts and moments of like, oh my God, like what's going to come from this? Like, is anything going to come from this? Is this worth it? I had those thoughts. I had those questions in my mind. When I got back and Catherine was waiting for me as I walked in the door, I was away for a total of 19 days because they all came to see me in California. So it was like a total of 30 days, but then it was like 19 days of not seeing my family. I walked in and I just cried. I just wrote down, like I had given everything I had on that tour, not knowing what the future held. But I knew the microscope: show up every day and look for ways to make a difference with the message of the energy bus. And that book has now reached 3.5 million people in terms of people buying it, probably even more for those who pass it on. And it's a perennial bestseller, even now, 17 years later. So you're right. It's so easy to look at me now and go, oh, look at the success I have now, coaching all these people, working with all these sports teams, working with the Miami Heat, Sean McVay with the Rams and all these great people. And it looks really cool, but I have to always remind myself, you are afraid of your first talk. You got rejected and you wondered if this book was ever going to get published. You thought about giving up several times, thinking maybe I should just go get a job because this is not going to work in the long run. I have a family to support. There was so much doubt. And we have to have the courage. We have to have the love to overcome our fear. And we have to have the belief that, you know what, somehow, some way, if you know you're meant to do this, you continue to act and show up.
I want to just touch on, again, something that you just said that I don't want anybody to miss. And that is that, we believe at the InPowered Life podcast that everything is a tapestry, that there's a divinity to every single moment, and every moment is the synchronistic connecting to the next. And you beautifully articulated your growth and trajectory in your career as that. And I want everyone to be able to connect the dots of theirs, because if you're not paying attention to it, you don't get to see the divinity, the beauty, the magic in every moment. Speaking to 6 people and pouring your heart out because you're committed to your mission, and then that leads to a 6,000 person speaking event, most people wouldn't connect the dots. They would already move on. That'd be in the next stage, the next phase. But we need to look at that, because I'm always wanting to encourage people that in any moment that you're in, you need to treat that as the most divinely orchestrated moment, because you're having it. That means that there's value and there's meaning there. And if it's a grocery store clerk that you're talking to, or whether you're on stage, or whether you're writing a book or talking to a CEO, you need to treat everybody equally, because in that moment, as you give selflessly of yourself, you never know where that tapestry leads and what impact you can leave in the room at that time. And you just so beautifully articulated all of that. Jon, I probably have about 150 questions that I want to ask you, and they're on so many topics. And so I want to at least keep our audience going in a train of thought without confusing them, because I do want to bounce around. But I would love to talk a little bit about your book, The One Truth. It is such an incredible book, and I'm going to encourage our audience. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for everybody to grab a copy of this book. What I love about this book is that it speaks into my soul as a reminder of who we really are. And I think so many people are caught up in what is the everyday rat race of what does life look like, that we forget that we are these beautifully divine beings. And, you speak into the hole in the soul and how we have this separation between, who we are. And I think that the one truth really helps people heal. Could you speak into what is the benefit or the gain in not only for you writing this book, but also for the reader in reading the book?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. And I just want to first say to what you just last said is that, essence is eternal. So we are eternal beings. Appearance is temporary. And so we look like is just temporary. When we die, our body turns to dust. But what lasts? It's the essence. And what is that essence? That is love. So every moment is an eternal moment, as you say, to make an eternal impact. And so you never know what that moment can do for someone in their life and in your life. Remember, everything fades away. Your accomplishments are going to fade away. Your trophies will fade away. Your rewards and your money will fade away. But the love that you shared, that is what lasts. So ultimately, that's what everything comes down to. And the one truth is all about the fact that everything comes down to oneness and separateness. And we are meant to realize and remember that we are one with ourselves, one with each other, and one with our creator. We're not meant to be separate. And yet everything in life tries to tell us that we're separate and that we're disconnected. And the more we believe that lie, the more we actually fall into separation and disconnection. And if you look at all mental health disorders, they all report feelings of isolation and disconnection and feeling separate. If you look at all disease, right? And you look at all issues and dysfunctions, it all comes from separation. A team that is divided and feels separate is a very weak team with a lot of dysfunctions. The more we get a team to connect and unite, they become very powerful and strong. Look at our country, very disconnected politically. And so you see a lot of issues as a result of that. If there was one unifying factor and a country could come together like it has in the past, you would see a stronger country. Same thing happens with us psychologically. There are things in our life called trauma and events that could cause these wounds and these holes in our soul. And actually, research shows that when you experience trauma, you have a neurological break in your brain. They call it broken brain. There's a separation that occurs from the trauma that we've experienced. But healing is possible. When we heal the hole that we have in our soul, we heal the wound that we have. It might be the father that abandoned you, like I had, the biological father. It might be the abuse that you had when you were young and you experienced that, and that caused trauma. It might be, unfortunately, the rape that you might have experienced. And I have very many friends who have dealt with that, and it's often hidden to the world, but people experience that. It might be just a traumatic event and something that maybe didn't seem traumatic to others, but it was to you. Whatever it may be, you'll have that experience in your life. And everyone really does have a wound. And the journey of life is to heal it. And so the one truth is all about how at even the elementary level, negative thoughts and fear and worry and doubt, all that disconnect us. So it's about how to get to a higher state of mind. So if you just read the first part of the book, you're going to have a higher state of mind. You're going to have more courage, more confidence, more belief. You're going to learn how to win the battle of your mind and how to overcome negative thoughts. It's the only book that actually explains how thoughts work and how to overcome those thoughts you have and win that battle. And then the second part of the book teaches about oneness and separateness and how everything comes down to that. Teamwork, marriages, relationships, healing, you name it. And then the third part really goes deep, which is what we talk about in terms of healing and how to heal the hole that you have in your soul. And that's what we're here for. We are here to heal. And as you become one in wholeness, the word shalom actually means wholeness. It means integrity. Integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole and complete. So when you feel whole and complete, you are one, and healing begins to take place in that oneness, in that connection spiritually. And I just love the term namaste. The spirit in me recognizes the spirit in you. It means we know that we are spirit. And then you look at, from the Bible, Corinthians 6:17, he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. Well, as you become one spirit with your creator, that's where renewal and healing takes place. It was never meant to be an independent relationship. We're actually meant to be codependent with God, not with people, but with God, codependent. And as we become codependent and we become connected, that power of the creator moves through us in that unison, in that oneness. And in that oneness, we start to live with more power. We have a higher state of mind. We have more clarity. We have more focus. We know that we can take on this world and transform this world instead of being a victim of this world, which is what you feel when you're in a lower state of mind and disconnected and separate. You feel very weak. So this book is about how to truly live with power. And I say, if you read this book, you'll be like a Jedi. I've had people say, I feel like you've given me the secrets of the universe in 150 pages of a short read that explains how it all works. And now you get to go live with that power. And it's really cool because people who have read it are already experiencing the power of it. So I'm excited for it. I wrote it for that reason. The ideas were coming to me on a walk. I began to have more and more ideas, like, you call them, and I call them downloads. And you call them downloads, Rudy? I call them
absolutely.
downloads. And they come in all the time. And so I was getting these downloads, and I began to write this book, and I realized how powerful it was. Then I started teaching others on it. I started calling up NFL coaches, NBA coaches, Major League Baseball players, NFL players, quarterbacks, teaching them this to them. And they were like, this is it. This is it. This is it. I'm like, I know, it's awesome, right? It's amazing. Like, no one's ever taught anything like it. It's really unique. It's really different. And yet it makes so much sense. And yet it is the truth. It goes to the truth. And when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. I think people overlook the simplicity and the genius of it. And by the way, I'm not saying I'm a genius for writing it, because it's not me who wrote it. The ideas came to me from God, the creator. And when you understand the genius of it, I think it's because it's so simple that people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. They feel like they've heard it before, because guess what? You already know the truth in your own soul. So I'm actually reminding you of what you already know and putting it in a way that allows you to then act on it.
I speak into the mind a lot and how the brain works, because I think people need a little bit of that understanding. And thoughts produce feelings, and thoughts and feelings drive all human behavior. And I think that this book, over any other book, to me would be a catalyst for change for anybody who is wanting to at least understand it. And you've written it in such a simplistic form. So again, I'm going to highly recommend everybody grab a copy of the book, because it is going to create an impact, if not many, many profound impacts. I want to move on to something else, but I want to add one more note, and that is just, I love that you phrase it, become a force of the source for healing. And you can only become the force of the source when you've healed the trauma. And so I'd asked you a trick question, because I'd asked you, what would you gain from writing the book and then from reading the book? And then you answered the question, because, I know that your father, biological father, left you when you were 1, and that obviously created a profound wound in you. And, I believe through reading that you healed that in reading the book. Would you say that would be the case?
Oh yeah, I would say that I healed it in many ways. I don't think we ever fully heal. I think that wound never fully closes. There's always a little piece, because we're human, and that little piece always causes us to keep seeking God, to continue healing. I think healing is a journey to the day that we die. But is it closed in many ways? Like, is it closed greater and greater and greater over time? Yes. Have I healed it over time? Yes. So I've done a lot of healing, and I would argue that when we teach, we continually learn. When we help others heal, we continue to heal. But you have to first heal yourself before you can be a healer in many ways. So as I've been studying this, learning this, sharing this, I've grown so much and I've healed so much. And now as I teach it, I would say I heal even more. I'm reminding myself of the truth over and over and over again. And I'm sharing the message of love over and over and over again. And it's like the fear cannot penetrate. The negativity cannot come in. Love casts out fear. So the minute you bring love to it, fear dissolves. And so the minute you bring healing to it, the wound continues to get better and better and better. So I would say, yeah, that's been my journey.
Thank you so much for that. I want to talk about 2 topics that are my favorite topics, and somehow you managed to bring them together. And I would love to know how you're able to do that. So for anybody that hasn't yet come across you, we've alluded to it a little bit, but you are one of the foremost leadership training experts in the world. And so you go into companies and teach leaders how to create teams that move forward. So here's my question. At 4 minutes and 41 seconds of the podcast today, 4 minutes and 41 seconds, you used the word God. And so many people are scared to talk about God at work. And yet you bring it into every aspect of who you are. And so my favorite topics would be belief and faith, and then also leadership. And so many companies will say, I want you to come in and motivate and drive and support my team, which is what I do. But then they say, but don't use the G word, or let's not talk about that, or can we dummy that down? And yet you unapologetically put it forward. And I think it's one of your driving success points. I would love to know, selfishly, how do you merge those two, and how do you feel people are receiving that in the workplace?
Well, I don't lead with God. I lead with love. I lead with principles that make people better. The reason why I'm brought into all these companies and organizations and sports teams and schools is because I don't lead there going, hey, you all need to believe in God. I go in there, how can I help you get better? I want to help you achieve more. I want to help you feel better. I want to give you confidence and courage and more positivity to overcome this negativity. But let's face it, as you seek to be more positive and you look for positivity, you eventually find the source of it. And what is that? A loving God. Positivity comes from a loving God. So as you seek it and you strive to be it, you're going to naturally come into contact with the source of positivity. And that is the creator of it all. And I'm not here to preach religion. And so I think most people do believe in a creator. Like, even if you're, I had a friend, I said, even if you're a Native American and you believe in a creator, because I played lacrosse, which was called Begataway. The creator's game is what it meant. They believe in the creator. And I think that's wonderful. Like, whatever you believe, great. I think it's hard to believe that we're here by just some random accident and some chance. Like, I had a 16-year-old who was suicidal in the ER 2 nights before, and he was struggling to believe in a God. And I said, are you an accident? And he said, no, I'm not an accident. I go, well, if you believe this is all just randomness and there's no God, then you're an accident. He goes, well, I'm not an accident. I said, do you have a purpose? He goes, yes, I have a purpose. I said, well, you wouldn't have a purpose if there was no God or no creator. It would be all randomness, all accident, and it would be meaningless. He's like, well, I have a purpose. So as you remind people that there's a purpose, there's meaning, you see design in everything. I think people are okay believing in a creator and a God. They just don't like religion. And they don't like people forcing religion on them. And even when I wrote The One Truth, I shared the aspect of the solution to the separation. And even in doing that, I shared how the Bible is actually not a religious book. The Bible is actually a book of truth that actually explains separation and oneness. And when you actually read it as that, it makes so much sense. And you have to understand that before the Bible, there was the ancient Jewish story of Adam and Eve about separation, separating from each other and from God. That's a story of separation. And that was written before Jesus even walked the earth. And so truth doesn't need the Bible to exist. Truth already exists. The Bible just happens to explain the truth of oneness and separateness. So that's what I explain in that book. And so when I go work with companies, I often will not talk about God. I'll just talk about principles, and then power and strength and optimism and belief. And it may pour out of me because that's just who I am, but I don't really talk about it. And I want to respect everyone's belief and where they are on the journey, because I was a New Ager. I was a Buddhist. There were times I might be considered an agnostic, but I always believed in something greater, just didn't know what it was. And so I've been on a journey myself. So I never judge where someone is on their journey. And I think that's the key. You lead with love, you share principles, you help people get better. And as they start to transform and change, they're all going to be looking towards wanting healing. And how do you heal? How do you heal? It has to come from a spiritual nature, because you'll never heal a spiritual void with physical things. And all wounds are actual spiritual voids. So it's going to lead you to healing and connection and to the creator when you look for true and real healing. So that's how I do it. I basically have several versions of myself, I believe, in many ways. Like, we can go really deep and I can talk to a church, or we can go to a business and I can talk leadership, and I can talk about your challenges and how to get your team to perform at a higher level. I'm going to a football team, NFL team this summer, and I'm not there to talk about, God or religion. I'm going to give them the first part of the One Truth, book one, because there's 3 books in one within the One Truth, like 3 sections. And I'm going to give them section 1, and I'm going to share with them how to have a high state of mind to perform at a higher level. And so that's what I do. And then some people want to come up to me afterwards and want to talk. And if they want to go deeper, then we have those deeper conversations. But yeah, I'm not there to do altar calls in businesses.
It's just my experience of you is that you so beautifully stand in your faith, and it just exudes from you in every facet of how you show up. And I've had the privilege of not only breaking bread with you, but seeing you stand on stage, and then also reading your book, and now having this one-on-one conversation, and you're the same man. And I like to point that out to our audience because that's rarely the case. But always what comes through you is you're grounded in so much faith. One of my favorite teachers was Wayne Dyer. And he wrote so many beautiful, profound books. But what I loved most about his journey of life was that I grew as he grew through his books. You've written 30 books. Would you say that you have grown with each of your books?
Yes. I mean, if you read The One Truth, it is completely different. It is nothing like my other books. And that's what's fun. I write some hardcore business books. Power of Positive Leadership is that. Power of a Positive Team is that. Difficult Conversations Don't Have to Be Difficult is that. No Complaining Rule is that. So you write these books that are business, and then I'll write other books like The One Truth, like The Garden, that are more spiritual. The Carpenter is business, but there's some subtones of spirituality in there, but it's done in a powerful way. So yes, I've grown so much in my books and in who I am over the years. And your work should reflect that. Like, I really feel like I'm a better writer, but what's wild? The Energy Bus is still the most popular book of all the books I've written. And I wrote that when I was 35. Think about that. 35. I'm now 53. 35, 53. I've grown so much from that guy who wrote that Energy Bus. But when I read that book and I pull it up, like, I can't believe I wrote this. This is really like, wow, this is incredible. So was it me? No. The power moving through me, because every book I write takes about 3.5 weeks to write. People should know that. I'm not that smart. 3.5 weeks, sometimes 2.5. And the book will just flow and pour out of me every morning. And I just start writing, and I walk during the day and I pray and I get more ideas and I share more. So I always tell people, like, if you do like my books, if they've encouraged you, just know the power behind them. And that power is actually available to you too, because that power is available. If it spoke through me to you, it's available to you. And so it's been cool to watch how I've been shaped by what I've written, and also how new ideas continue to emerge. And I'm excited about the books that I'm going to be writing going forward.
I love that you refer to it, and I'm going to change the terminology slightly, but that you're a conduit for the work that's coming through you. And we all are that, but we're either allowing it or we're not allowing it. Something that I've really resonated deeply with you is the belief that, we can have something, but we need to have trust in something coming. And then we need to be expecting that thing to come, and we need to, have the faith in it coming, right? And so years ago, I am not a tattoo person, but I tattooed the word trust on my left arm, because I need to trust in this higher power, the flow, the force of what I need to do, and that it's going to come. Then I need to be expectant, and then I need to let go of my expectation of what I think it needs to be. And so, I find that in your work, so often you speak into the trust, the flow, the let go, and then be expectant for it to come. I don't want to steal the surprise from the entire audience who gets to read your books, but I just wanted to add that in. Jon, I want to be respectful of you and your time. I do have 1 or 2 closing questions for you, and I think it's really important our audience sees this side of you. You today are a top performer. You speak to the highest, elite in moving them forward, and yet you do it with such vulnerability, and you speak in truth. And I know that's a title of your book is One Truth, but I don't want people to be, confused in my use of the term. You speak in truth, meaning you don't hide the parts of you that so many people at your level would want to hide. Once you're successful, once you're a multimillionaire, once you're famous, once people know you, well, then you don't want to talk about, almost adultery. You don't want to talk about being a terrible husband. You don't want to talk about your wife wanting to leave you. And yet you and Catherine, wrote a book on it. You have beautifully spoken into it just in this podcast alone about the traumas of not feeling good enough and not feeling worthy. I've heard you talk about wanting, to take your life when you were in 8th grade and going to your mom and saying like, I don't want to live anymore. And you share these vulnerabilities, and yet so many people don't want anyone to know, oh, I had an affair or I did this. And yet at this level, you still manage to do that. I don't so much as have a question for you, but I just want to say to you, I just commend you so beautifully, because you're showing people that the whole of who we were equals who we are and who we get to become. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rudy. That means a lot. You have to just be real. Catherine for real. That's my wife. And we wrote the Relationship Grit. And we wrote that book and shared my flaws and all, because we knew we wanted to help people get better, stay together, and transform. And in seeing my transformation, you know that it's possible. And so that's all I know how to be is me. All I know how to be is me, and be real and be who I am. And people will connect most through your weaknesses, not your strengths. And we're not perfect. And it goes back to integrity. Who are you? Integrity is wholeness, completeness. There's no gaps in my character. There's no gaps in between what I say and what I do, who I am and what I share. And you know what? There are going to be times you might see me in an airport and I might be mad at something in that moment. And I'm going to tell people that's me. I'm not perfect and I'm not Mr. Positive. There are moments I fall short, but I strive to live up to that day in and day out. There are times I get pissed off, and that is me. That is who I am. And I'm not going to apologize, because I know I'm on a journey. I'm not Jesus, even though I strive to be. But the journey is to be more and more like him every day, to love, to serve, to care, to do that unconditionally, and to know that you're in the world, but not of the world, and to know that the power is inside of you to transform the world outside you. So that's my journey every day, is to be the version of the person who wrote those books and be the person in those books. I'm reading Power Positive Leadership times now because my company's growing a lot and I'm dealing with all the issues of growth in a company. And I find myself getting frustrated some days. I'm like, all right, I think I need to read the Power of Positive Leadership, so I'm a better leader for my team. And so I'm very real about that. And I think that's the key. I think you just got to just share who you are, because that is what people connect to most. And power versus force, the highest level of energy and consciousness is actually authenticity. Authenticity. Being real, and people know when you're not, and when you are, I think that's what connects people to you. During the pandemic, I stated and shared what I believed to be true. Most of it, 99%, turned out to be true. It was hard to do it at the time. People said I was gonna lose my career. I gained so much more trust, so much more followers, because I was being authentic to who I am and what I believed and what I saw in my own journey. So that's just an example of that. I think the more you're true, the stronger you'll be. That's a lesson for everyone. You be you, and then you become the best version of you. People will often say, well, I'm just being me. Yeah, but you're being a jerk. Be you, and then strive to be the best version of you as you grow and to continue to get better. So thanks for saying that, because my brother said, why are you going to do that book, Relationship Grit? Like, he read and goes, don't share that. People love your work. They're going to be disappointed. I go, no, I have to show them who I was and now who I am now, because they have to know that transformation is possible for them if they're struggling. And Catherine and I, that book has saved countless marriages already by doing it. So we knew we had to, and now we know why. We were meant to help people heal.
I asked the last few questions today very intentionally because I wanted to layer information for the audience that we can change, and that we're not who we were. We are who we are as the totality of everything, and that we get to become something beautiful. You had shared previously that in 8th grade, you considered suicide. And I would love to know, as cliche or cheesy as this question sounds, I think that there's somebody that could be listening to this that is in a very similar place, and they're feeling like, I don't have valuable meaning, or there's something missing in my life. And I want them to be able to look at where you were and what you've still achieved and have still to achieve. 30 books later, 17 bestsellers, you continue to create impact in millions of lives. What would you say to your 17-year-old self, or 16-year-old self, or 25-year-old self today?
So often, as I wrote about in The One Truth, when you're on the roller coaster of life and you're going down that roller coaster, you think the roller coaster is going to crash. And if you've never been on a roller coaster before, what happens is you think it's crashing and you want to escape. You want to jump off. So many people feel like they are just on this roller coaster. They're going down. There's no way out, and they're not going to go back up. And so they jump off and they escape. And that's not the answer. The answer is to stay on the roller coaster and keep riding it. And over time, the truth is you will ride that roller coaster back up to a higher state, to a better state, to a better life. You're going to have struggles. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts telling you to give up, that you're not worth it, that the future's hopeless. Those thoughts are not coming from you. How do I know? Who would ever choose to have a negative thought? Talking to that young man who was suicidal, he was 16. I said, listen, you're a hero and in your own epic story. Every one of us is. And let me tell you something. Every hero must overcome what on their journey? Negativity, a villain, and adversity. Those negative thoughts are the villain you must face. And how do you overcome it? With positivity. You see, those negative thoughts you think are from you. They make you feel worthless. They make you feel broken. They make you feel like you want to give up. They make you feel like something needs to be fixed. And I want to tell everyone this. You're not broken. Nothing needs to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just facing the battle that everyone is meant to face, the villain and negativity. As the hero, you overcome, you stay on that roller coaster, you ride that wave to a higher state. And through positivity, that's why positive words and thoughts and beliefs are so important. They help us overcome the negativity. We overcome the negativity with positivity. And in doing so, we become that hero who then saves the lives of others and impacts others. So you go through what you're meant to go through to help others go through what they're meant to go through. And that's the journey of life. And I think this is a great way to end this podcast because ultimately everyone has that option. And if you gave up, you would never have the opportunity to help someone that you're meant to help in the future. And I'm proof of that. If I gave up in 8th grade, if I gave up in my 20s when I wanted to give up at times, I would not be making a difference in the lives of those who I'm impacting now. And I think you owe it to the world to live your purpose, to overcome that negativity, to find your true strength and source of positivity, a connection to God. And you live that way, you live that connected life, and you will live with power, peace, confidence, and courage. And that's how you're meant to live.
Oh my gosh, that was just an incredible way for us to end the episode. Jon, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes to your website, to your books, to your new book launch that just came out today. I just want to thank you so much for graciously pouring into every single one of us. You know, for you listening as the audience, this is the InPowered Life Podcast. We believe that the power lies within you to live a life of power, abundance, freedom, and joy. And you get to be the most courageous version of who you came here to be. Jon has just not only articulated that, but also demonstrates that in every area of life. Jon, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And to everybody else, thank you so much. We'll catch you in the next episode of The Empowered Life.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.